Hi everybody, welcome back to my channel. Today I'm so excited to do another sewing video for you guys. Today's sewing video is going to be just a few simple sewing projects for anyone who's a beginner or even just somebody who's up for a simple project. But I'm so excited to have you here and I'm excited to make this video. So let's go on and I'll show you the projects that we're going to make and let's go. First thing that we're going to make is this cute little tote bag. I'm going to be using mine for groceries, so that way I'm not taking any more plastic bags from grocery stores. But it's a super easy little bag to make, and I'm going to show you how to make it now. Okay, starting off, for materials, you'll just need a fabric. Whatever fabric you have or want to use. I'm just using some scrap fabric that I had that is just this very thin, long piece of fabric. So first off, you're going to want to lay it out, fold it in half as I'm doing, and cut it to the length that you want. And if your fabric is wider than mine, or if you're going to need to cut more than just the top, then just use a ruler, measure it out however long and wide you want it, and cut it out. And try to leave the bottom to where it's folded up as mine is, so you won't have to sew the bottom, you'll just have to sew the sides. Now out of that same fabric, I am just cutting what are going to be the straps. I cut it 28 inches long and about 2.5 inches wide. So if you're wanting your straps to be the length and width that mine end up being, those are your measurements. And you are going to cut out 2 of those. In this clip, I was just kind of trying to show you where I'm going to sew along. I'm just folding it in half like this and sewing right along the edge there for this strap. Once I sewed and measured it, the strap was 1 inch wide. Okay, so this is how we're going to flip these back inside out. The easiest way to do this is by taking the end, which you didn't sew over the ends, hopefully. You're supposed to just leave those open. You're just going to take your scissors and just make a little slit towards the top, like that. Okay, you got your little slit in the top. You're going to take either a pin or you can take a bobby pin, like I use a bobby pin, and I'm just going to slip that right through like that. Now you're going to turn it like this. You want to stay connected on the bobby pin, and you're going to put it inside, like that, inside the strap, and push it into the strap, like that. So now the bobby pin is here inside, and you're just going to start kind of pushing it along, and then you're going to start pulling it over, pulling it through. The hardest part is getting the very top to go in. Once that goes in, it goes pretty fast. Once you get to this point, it's usually a little bit easier once the bobby pin's through. So it's halfway in, right side out. You can just pull that through and grab that fabric and then just slowly pull that all the way through. Okay. And there you go. And now I'm going to go and iron this down. And I just wanted to quickly say, for those who really are beginners and haven't used an iron often, never let the iron just sit on your fabric when it's plugged in. That could burn your fabric and do damage, and it could also start fires. So just always keep your iron moving and until it's as ironed as you want it to be, and then always unplug afterwards. Moving on to the next step, I just took those straps and I folded down the very edges of them and just sewed along the very edge just to close off that open seam. And there it is, nice and sewed down. Okay, so here we have the fabric that we're going to be using to make this first bag. First off, we're just going to fold down the top, both of these top edges. We're going to fold them in like this, and you can either just pin that down or iron it down so it's flat, and you're going to do that on both sides like this, so they're both facing outwards. and you want them to be even like that. So whatever length you want, 1/2 inch is probably good. And then you're just gonna sew right here along that line on both sides. Okay, so we just sewed along this line, and there's still this rough edge that's going to be on the inside of the bag. So we're just going to fold it one more time like this and sew over that same line one more time, just to get rid of that fabric, the raw fabric, because that will fray, and we don't want that. If you want a nicer looking bag, we just got to fold it one more time and just sew along the whole thing just to close that off. Nice and pretty. And now we closed off that rough seam on the inside. Okay, so now that we have those sewed, we just sewed both ends of the bag. So now we're going to fold it back in half. And we want the part where the edge is kind of sticking out a little bit on the inside, you want that on the outside of the bag right now. And you're just going to line up the top of the bag like this. And then you can pin it here on both sides. You can pin it all the way down. Or you can just kind of go for it and try to make it as straight as you can without pinning it. But pinning it is definitely going to help to keep that straight and keep the fabric together. So now what we're going to do is we're just going to sew right down the sides of both sides. And then we'll be almost done with the bag. It's super simple. So let's try that. Okay, and we're back. And we just sewed the edges. So I just did about 1/2 inch on both sides so that they're about even. And I even went over it twice just to make sure it was extra strong, because I'm planning on carrying some heavy things in here like cans and different things like that at the grocery store. So I just did a little bit of reinforcement just to make sure that it doesn't tear. So now we are almost done with the bag. It's still inside out, as you can see. So we're just going to add the straps, and then this bag will be done. So what we're going to do for the straps is you're going to take one of them and you're going to get a measuring tape of any sort. I'm just using this one that I use for art. And you just want to measure across the top. I'm just going to kind of show you, but then I'm just going to do it on the desk so that's better. But you're going to want to measure like this, and you're going to want to, let's say you want the strap 2 inches from the outside. So you're going to measure 2 inches, and then you're going to pin that right onto just one side of that fabric at 2 inches like that. And then with the same strap on the other side, you're going to take the end, you're going to come onto the you're going to come onto the other side, and you're also going to measure 2 inches in, and you're going to pin the other side onto the same end of the bag on the outside, so that's on the so that it will be on the inside of the bag once you flip it. So then that will be one strap on that side, and you're going to do the same thing on the other side so that they're even. So let's measure those out and sew those on and see how those come out. I haven't sewn them on yet, but I have both of the straps pinned. So as you can see, they're just pinned on there on both sides, one strap for each side, like that. And now I'm just going to sew across, and I'll show you up close how I'm going to sew the straps, because you're going to want to do 2 lines just to make them extra strong, because you don't want them to just like tear off if you have something heavy in your bag. So just to make them a little more durable, we're going to do 2 lines, and I'll show you up close how I'm going to do that. Okay, so we have our first strap here, and we're just going to go sideways. And you want to make sure that you don't accidentally sew the top of the bag closed. You don't want to sew both of the edges together on accident. So make sure your bag is opened like this, and you only have one side over the edge of the sewing machine underneath the needle. You don't want both sides, because then you'll sew your bag closed on accident. So I'm going to hold this down with my finger. I'm going to take out my needle. Just try to make sure it doesn't move. And I'm going to do this first stitch just right along the very top of this strap. And when you start sewing, you always want to go a few stitches in, and then you should have a reverse button or knob thing on your sewing machine that you press down and you go back a few stitches. So that way it closes off that stitch and it won't just come undone. So you go across, and when you end as well, go a little bit over the strap, press your reverse button and go backwards and then back over it again. Just because it'll really make the two ends strong, and it'll make it so that those stitches that you just made won't come apart. So now we're going to move down to the bottom of the strap here that we have on there. And I have the strap about 1 inch in. So now we're going to sew a line down the bottom just to secure it extra strong. So that way it doesn't just come undone or tear, or we don't want anything to happen to it. So I'm going to start off, go in, go back, and go across. And once you're finished, go back, and there you go. Now let's do that with the rest. Okay, and we finished. So I just sewed on these straps, and now it's the moment of truth. We're going to turn it right side out and see how it looks. Okay, and there's our bag. It's nice and cute if you want to do some kind of embroidery or some kind of thing on there. It's just a nice little plain bag to put your groceries or put whatever you want to carry around. And super cute and very easy. So, let's move on to the next project. Okay, so the next thing that we're going to be making is this little pool bag. So a pool clothes bag. I'm also going to be using this for grocery stuff. And this bag just pulls open like this. That was kind of aggressive. Okay, so for our next project, we're just going to be making a little drawstring bag. And so we're going to start out with the same thing that we just started out with, the tote bag. And we're just going to get right into it. I'm going to show you where to start and what to do from there. For this next project, we're going to start out with a piece of fabric, the exact same size as the other piece that we started with. We're going to fold it right in half. You can choose whatever size you'd like for this. We're going to start there. Okay, so the first thing that we're going to do here is we're going to take the tops of the edges, just these very top, and we're going to fold that down and sew it like we did on the last one. And we're going to fold it one more time, a little bit wider, and just sew right along the edge here, leaving a gap in the middle. First little line, we're going to fold it again, but this time that first fold was about 1/2 inch. This second fold is going to be just a bit wider. I'm going to go down about 1.5 inches. So next we're just going to go along, and we're just going to sew right back over that same line that we sewed in the first place. I'm actually going to make it just a little bit smaller, maybe about 1 inch. Okay, so now I'm just going to go ahead and do that same thing on the other side with the double fold. Okay, so now that I have both sides folded and we have that little gap right there in the middle, we are just going to move on to the second to last step. And like I said, this bag is super easy. So now we have the bag laid out again, and I just have it folded in half once again. And now you're gonna want to fold it to where this fold that you just sewed is on the outside. So it should be on the outside for both sides. And now what we're going to do is the very last step. From here right to the end of this fold and down, we're just going to sew all the way down about 1/2 inch, about 1/2 inch in on both sides. And we're just going to sew all the way down, and then I'll show you the next step. Just like that, you want the little flap. You want this little flap at the top to be open like that. Okay guys, so now that we've sewn all the way down the edges and left these little gaps at the top, we are just going to flip the bag right side out so that the seams, all this rough string and everything is on the inside. Okay, so now we're going to move on to the last step, and then our bag will be finished. So it's looking great so far. Let's finish it up. Okay, for this last step, you're just going to need your rope, string, ribbon, whatever you're going to use to put into the top of the bag to help seal it closed. That's what you're going to grab now. And you're just going to measure out along the width of your bag, plus, I'd say plus about 4 or 5 inches, like that, depending on how big you're making your bag. So I have about 5 extra inches on each side here. So now what you're gonna do is you're gonna take that, and I'm gonna mark it here with my finger where I have that. And I'm gonna double it. So I'm gonna bring this out, and I'm gonna make it double the length of what I just measured. So that way it's like this. About the same width out, but it's doubled. So now I'm gonna cut here, and I'm gonna do that twice. So I'm gonna have 2 of these long strings. Okay, so you have your 2 different strings here that are very long. So what we're gonna do here is we're gonna thread it through this top opening that we made, where we have our little openings on the side. As you see here, we have these 2 gaps. I'm just gonna take a little bit of this ribbon. I'm gonna cut the very top. Okay, you're gonna have your bobby pin through there like that. Hopefully it doesn't tear. And you're gonna stick this one side of the ribbon right through one of those openings. And you're gonna thread it all the way through until you get to the other side. Okay? So you have that first side through, the ribbon's all the way through, and I'm just gonna pull it. Now that I've come all the way to the other side, I'm gonna actually pull it through. But you wanna leave you're about 5 inches on that other side. Don't pull it all the way through. So now you're gonna go back in. We have the ribbon coming through this side. Now we're gonna go through the other side and just bring it all the way through. I've made it all the way through to the other side with the bobby pins. Now we have these 2 edges. I'm gonna take the bobby pin off, and I'm just gonna pull this all the way through like this with both sides, so that this side disappears, that side that's folded in. And then you're just gonna have these 2 loose sides here. And you wanna pull them so that they're even, just like that. Make sure they're even. Now you're gonna do the same thing, but starting on the other side. Let me show you just in case it's a little confusing. Back through on the other side. Just like that on the second one. I'm gonna thread that right through. Might look like a big jumble ribbon, might be a little confusing, but just take time and think about it before you start and make sure it's going to come out the right sides. Okay, so now on this side we have both of those ribbons through. So now you have both of your ribbons coming out both of these sides. So these are a little long for what I'm wanting, so I am going to cut them a little bit. But like I say, I think it's better to have more than less. So I'm going to tie a knot at about, I'm going to guess that's about 4 inches. I'm just going to tie a little knot just a little bit out here. Actually about maybe 2 inches or 3 inches. Just like that. Okay, so I have my knot there. Just the same size on the other side, about right there. And now I'm going to show you the magic in this. The fun part, you're just going to pull on those and boom. That is going to close up your bag beautifully. And to open it, all you got to do is just pull right there against the ribbon and it will open up. So there you go, there's bag number 2. Forgot to add as well, I'm going to cut off this extra ribbon here. So make sure that's a tight knot and cut that right off. And third, we are going to be making this little cushion that goes underneath your door. If you have big gaps under your door, I'm using it for my baby's room to block out light during the day when he takes naps. And you can use it for the same, or you can just use it to help air conditioning stay in your home, help air conditioning stay in certain rooms, different things like that. It just helps the draft under the door, or helps keep light out when there's a gap under your door. To start off this project, I'm just going to measure the length of the door, and you're going to want to add about 2 to 3 inches for seam allowance. And this is just going to give the length of what you need to cut your fabric. Okay, so what I'm thinking I'm going to do is I'm just going to fold this in here to the center. I'm going to fold this in to the center, and I'm going to make this a little longer because, well, I'm going to cut these off actually. Now, I'm going to fold that to the center, like this. And I'm just going to sew along both of these edges so that there's just like a small gap in between them. See? Hello. See, oh, you can dance. Say hello. Oh, here it comes. Okay, so now what we're gonna do is we're gonna stuff both sides of this. And I'm not gonna super stuff it. It doesn't need to be super tightly stuffed, but I'm gonna stuff both of these sides, and then I'll come back to you and show you what I'm gonna do to close off the ends. You can use whatever stuffing you want to stuff these. I just used an old pillow, as you can see, and that worked just fine. Okay, so I just finished stuffing this. As you can see, this is going to be the part that's the upside that goes under the door. And then there's the downside where you can see that's where I sewed the line. So the fabric is sticking out a little bit, but it's not going to be seen. It's going to be down on the ground under the door. It's very lumpy, and my baby loves the camera. So we're going to go put the, well, first, okay, so first we're just going to sew down the edges of this. I'm literally just going to fold it and sew it, and I'll show you a little clip of that. And then we're gonna be done, and we're gonna put it under the door and see if it actually fits. So let's go do it. Okay, now is for the moment of truth. We are gonna try it under the door and see if it works. If you want to be more precise with this, you can obviously measure everything a lot better than I did. But we're gonna see. You just slide it under. Just like that. It's a little bit short, but it works fine. It's good. And then we'll see if it actually closes with it. And it works. Which, sliding a little bit, I probably could have made it just a little thicker so that it stayed under just a little better, but still a lot better than the towel, and it will work just fine. So there's an idea for you. Try that out. Baby approved. Okay, so with the third thing, I just have to say, obviously I didn't take a ton of time on it. I wasn't professional. These are all things that I was planning on making anyways, and so I figured I would make a video for it, just in case anyone else was interested in, sorry, my baby is dancing right now. He's right next to me. Just in case anyone else is interested in making any of these things, I find them very useful and cheaper than just buying them new online. So with the under the door cushion thing, I definitely should have made both the cushions a little bigger and maybe just a little bit longer. If I would have measured correctly and took my time to do that, it would have turned out a lot better. So hopefully if you guys are planning on making it, you'll do that and it'll turn out better than mine, which that would be fantastic. So thank you for watching. I really do appreciate it, and I hope you enjoyed this video. Subscribe if you enjoyed it and want to see more. And thanks for watching. I appreciate it. Have a wonderful day. Bye.